Hey folks, before we get started, I should let you know that I hate trackers. It's just too analytical, too, left brain, everything fits in its place kind of workflow. It just drives me up the wall. But fortunately, SidTracker64 gets around most of my problems with that, where you've got to try to think about patterns on top of blocks on top of all this other nonsense instead of just making a bit of music that sounds good and then moving that around to wherever it's going to sound best. This still uses a similar sort of layout, but an entirely different workflow. And I've been really enjoying this one, and I hope that you're going to enjoy this Let's Play. It's pretty easy to work with. I'll just start off throwing in a bass drum here. And you'll hear immediately that bass drum kind of sucks. It's no problem. You can go in here and start editing it, because this is a full-on synth for each part in here. So in the in the instrument editor here, you get to pick all kinds of different waveforms, or you've got a whole wavetable which will run through this to create whatever sound you're specifying with the wave selector, as well as you can do fixed or relative notes. So in this case, the default bass drum was doing a whole bunch of triangles and then this noise, and it's a pink noise, so we can shape the sound of this. And I'm gonna shape that down and get kind of a glitchy sort of thing, because this is supposed to be making chip tunes, right? And that blip is very chiptune-esque, so I'm already happy with that. I'm gonna back out of this into the song editor, and you see that this is pattern 1 for voice 1, and that is reflected over here. And as I add a new loop, it's gonna go to that new bar pattern thing, and there's nothing selected on voice pattern 2 as it switches over there. So what I can do is say, okay, now go back to 1, and now it's continuing to go to 1 on both of these. But I don't actually want to do that now that I think of it, because what I wanted to do is go from this kick into a little bit more developed drum pattern. So I'm going to throw this kick that I've tweaked on the 1 or the 0 and the 8 here, and let's use the snare on other notes here and listen to that. And I fucked up. Where did I fuck up? Okay, I overwrit one. You can tell what instrument you have assigned to each of these notes on this grid by the number in the center. So 02 indicates the second instrument, which is the bass drum, which I can play for you. And 05 is the snare, but I should have had the bass drum on this note as well. So now this should not suck. And because I'm me, I can't just leave that snare drum without screwing around with it. And wow, this is a really complicated snare drum. I also want to bring this down a little bit. All right, I feel like that's working out pretty well. And so now we've got these two drum patterns, and they can be anything. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, is use what has been just my drum pattern track and add to that. So let me copy that. I will select all and copy that. And now when I switch over to pattern 3 here and paste this in, I'm going to add some additional stuff in between. So I'm going to do like a kind of a counterpoint bass thing. Let me start off with just a generic bass. I'll probably change it anyhow. And let's listen to that. actually liking the squelch to that bass. I think it adds a nice texture to the blips. So with that done, like we get the foundations of things, right? I can just copy this and paste. Let's do that a bunch. And now I've got the makings of a song here. And now I need a lead. So on this, I'm switching the drums to, once again, use that one that's got the counterpoint bass. And now for 84, I'm going to throw in a lead. And on this, I'll just use this as a starting point. And I'm just going to record a single note here and tell it to sustain that using this sustain button. So I'm clicking way down here after I've selected it up here. And wow, I do not need anything like that. I hit the sustain thing and it makes the sustain line down there. So it's going to hold this note. Oh, whoops, hold on. Put it into loop mode. And now let's make that do something else altogether. So here I'm editing this classic lead. It's worth pointing out that each song has up to 32 possible instruments, and you can change these as much as you want because as soon as you hit new song, it just repopulates all of the factory defaults. I don't think that there's a way to transfer sounds between the songs, but whatever. It's a pretty straightforward synthesis. The only thing that's particularly weird is the wavetable system, which you're going to get to see more of because I'm going to do that right now. So this is selected with a square that's hitting it at the relative position of 0 from where it starts. So it's basically just playing that C4 that I hit. And now I'm going to throw in another step in this, and I'm moving this over here to indicate that I want to do both of these. Oops. I'm gonna make that sound better. So it's now going between the C4 that I input and a C3 like immediately after. It's like this massively fast arpeggiator right here. And you can kind of slow it down if you want. You can say like, okay, now and for the sake of this demonstration, I'm gonna do that. Let me mute this so you can only oops, wrong one. There we go. So, let's see here. A really, really handy tip in here, since there's no like real mixer for each of the individual instruments, if you've got a part that isn't going to be using a decay into a sustain, you can just make the sustain your volume control. I'll give that a little bit of attack. Making sure that the filter isn't affecting this. It is set to off because there's only one filter in this. It's controlling all of these things, and you gotta really fight with what is going to be the dominant filter resetter thing. So, trying to decide. I'll screw around with the vibrato here. Bring that down a little bit. I kind of like the way that that's playing with the rapid arpeggiator, and now this vibrato that's making things even more crazy. Let me try scrolling over the filter here. Oh, okay. You know what? I'm hitting one of those points where, even though you're not hearing the drums, I think it's interfering with this. So let me go into the settings here and tell it to filter control from the third voice. Yeah, as soon as it does that, you start hearing that again. So let's hear what that sounds like now with the drums. Yeah, I fucked up my rate. Oh, I wish I could take credit for that. That was just the perfect combination of screwing around with things. What I just did there was put the filter control back on the first thing, so it's the drums, and it's creating kind of this ducking effect. Like, it's not really a compressor's kind of breathy thing, but it is doing this kind of gating on it. That just sounds awesome. Okay, so I'm just leaving that now. That's perfect. I'm going to copy this. And on... Oh, I told it to paste twice. Now you can get into this and transpose this one note. Like, that's basically all we got, right? Is one note on the bass and one note on the lead. And you can transpose everything. Like, you can select a bar and then transpose up. I think it sounds weird doing that to the bass, though. So let me try just doing that on the lead. And I'll do that again on the lead on this third bar here. And let's put this back to our first unadulterated. Alright, let's see how that sounds. So you hear how it's different between this one, where there's that bass on this first track. When it's sort of, and over here we get a more sustained note. And you know, that's as simple as dropping out that counterpoint bass note in the center there. So now that we've got this like sustained here, I kind of like that, just repeating that. So I'm going to copy this and paste. And we got a whole middle track here that I haven't screwed around with at all. So let's do that now. We keep it on just the drum pattern here of the kick, snare. And now there's nothing going on the, well, there shouldn't be anything going on. Yeah, there's nothing going on here on this track now. I'm going to throw in something on here. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to do. Let's throw in a different bass. I really like the tones that I'm getting in here. Okay, I got an idea. I'm going to bounce around on a minor scale. And let me Listen to that. I feel like it needs something else. That's really good, but like it needs something else, and I'm not sure what that needs. Oh, maybe if I sustain this. Now it sounds different, right? As soon as I added that sustain, because that's the filter is now getting screwed up. I'm not sure why that made that much of a difference. It shouldn't have. At least I don't think it should have. Clear that. It continues to be screwed up. Oh, there's something else I can try here. I can select all of these and just move them down. So let me move these down. Or I'm trying to put them all off center from any other notes. Let's see what happens here. Okay, that is actually worse. As far as I know, there isn't an undo, but fortunately that is a mistake that is easily corrected. Try throwing in sustains on these notes and see what happens. Oh, you know what? It's that snare. I can fix this problem, actually. I think if I put this to just the kick sounds, which was on my first drum pattern. Problem solved. Let's see what happens now if I give this a bit of sustain. Get rid of the sustains on all these. That sustain's a little too long. All right. So that ended up being pattern 1 on the drums. And I'll just copy this and be lazy so that this video does not get too long here. And let's hear what my song sounds like. Really love this intro. It probably could have used a bridge between those two, but I think you get the general idea. This is a lot of fun, and it's really easy to work with. As you see, I didn't have any panic attacks because, oh my god, I hate trackers. But it worked out pretty well. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much to all my Patreon patrons for making these possible. Take it easy, guys. I'm going to assign to the wobble amount here the cutoff frequency of the low pass filter here. Instant dubstep, right? These analog waves are all kinds of different throughout the entire width of the wave, so by changing this position, I should be keeping my stabs the same while changing. Yeah. You can hear a real big change in what's going on now with this section right here. It's not necessarily a good thing, but you can hear the change.